Welcome back, America. You know, there's really only a handful of individuals who I consider really very, very important modern day scholars and voices for our country, for the world, really. I grew up listening to people like Thomas Sowell, Milton Friedman, Bill Buckley, so many others. And I feel there's a dearth of those kinds of people today. But one of the people who I respect and I view that way is Douglas Murray. Douglas Murray is obviously a Fox News contributor. He wrote a fantastic book, The War on the West. He's an associate editor of The Spectator, National Review Institute senior fellow. But I want to talk to you today, Douglas Murray, about what's happening to our country. I saw you debating one of these reprobates not long ago. I think it was on Piers Morgan's show. We actually have individuals in our country now, throughout our media, throughout the Democrat Party, obviously throughout much of our culture, who, in my view, take the side of genocidal terrorists doing the most atrocious and horrific things to fellow human beings. And we see these people, they're in our own country. They're in the greatest country on the face of the earth. And they're given, TV time, and they're given radio time, and they're given all kinds of time as if their point is legitimate. What do you make of that?
You're absolutely right, Mark. I mean, I'm obviously from Britain originally. I spend most of my time in America these days, although I've been in Israel for the last few months. I'm always sort of amazed by the way in which we nurture, cultivate, and encourage in our societies in the West today people who obviously hate our societies. You see it everywhere. You mentioned some of the people I find myself debating these days. You can predict with 100% accuracy what they're going to say on any subject. The people who, for instance, have spent recent months trying to rile up their audiences of malcontents against Israel, the people who try to rile up people in the cause of the Palestinians of Gaza, they are always the same people who turn out on the streets of America and protest against America and everything to do with America. They're exactly the same people who live on this hair trigger where any opportunity they have to defame America, they'll do it. It's the same across the whole of the West. We have nurtured people within our midst of a bewildering variety of backgrounds, it has to be said, who just seem to hate everything about us. And I always think, I'm one of those rare people perhaps who actually feels incredibly grateful for the societies we're lucky enough to live in. I don't take any of it for granted because I've traveled around enough of the world, reported from enough of the world to know that what we have in America is unbelievably unusual, not just by historical standards, but by the standards of the world today. And so when I see these people who just want to rip the whole thing up, want to rip everything about America up from the founding onwards, I just want to say to them, go and live somewhere else. Go and try this somewhere else, not here.
So well said. I mean, these so-called paradises, none of them live in Gaza. None of them live in Iran. None of them live in Lebanon. You have these sort of Marxist forces within the United States, whether it's based on genitalia or race and so forth and so on, attacking Israel, effectively, if not directly, indirectly praising these regimes, you have to assume. And yet they want nothing to do with them. They will never go there. They will never live there. Same with our country. Your point's well done. They trash this country, but they will never go and live in communist China or Cuba or any of these other places. No?
No, they never do. And as far as I can see, the plan they have for America is the same plan that their predecessors always had, which is tear it down and then see. I mean, one of my favorite stories is that marvelous passage in Tom Wolfe's great essay, Radical Chic, about the Black Panthers, when all of these, you'll remember the story of these, the Black Panthers are being entertained at the Bernstein's exquisite apartment in New York. And somebody says to the Panthers, but what are you going to do the day after the revolution? What are you going to do? And this Panther says, you can't put a blueprint on the future, man. And the reply comes, You mean you're just going to wing it? Now, that's essentially what we're dealing with the best of the radicals in America today. They just want to tear down what we have and then wing it. Others, as I don't need to tell you, Mark, have a very clear plan indeed.
It's an interesting point you raise there, because Vladimir Lenin said the same thing. He said Marx tells us how to conduct a revolution and what the purpose of the revolution is, but he doesn't tell us how to govern. But we see how they govern. They govern like genocidal maniacs. They try to control speech and thought processes. They develop these big police states. We see how they want to govern. So let me swing into this and ask you this question. So when you hear Joe Biden and Blinken and these other real know-nothings talk about a two-state solution, let me suggest this to you, and I'd like your reaction. If, in fact, in the 1990s, Bill Clinton and Ehud Barak and Arafat had a deal that actually created this two-state solution where almost 100% of Judea and Samaria was surrendered to the Palestinians, about a third of Jerusalem was surrendered to the Palestinians, and on and on and on. It's my argument that two-state solution would have been a final solution, because there's no way Israel can defend those kinds of borders against what it's up to today.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.